G'day, I'm Paul. The Ford Ranger Raptor, it has finally been revealed. I have been looking forward to this for a long time. So today I'm going to take you through the exterior, the interior, the powertrain, the suspension, all of the information we have before we finally get a chance to drive the car. So let's get started. So we'll kick things off with the exterior. I just love the look of this. It is so muscular, and I've got to say that the other manufacturers in this segment are going to have a big issue now because the Ranger Raptor was always pretty good, except it was let down a little bit by a diesel engine that was probably too small for the application. This time around, it looks even tougher. It has a big old twin-turbocharged V6, and I think that if you're Toyota, Isuzu, or anyone else in this segment, you really should be alarmed. So we'll start off down the front there. So the most obvious thing there is that enormous Ford lettering. I love that. So there's no mistaking this for any other branded car. So Ford, it protrudes nicely from that grille. And there's a huge opening there for cooling because this is, of course, now powered by a 3-litre twin-turbocharged V6. It requires a lot of cooling for the type of endurance they've configured this car for. In addition to that, you can see those C-clamp LED headlights. This will also get matrix LED headlights. So that's the technology that stops you dazzling other drivers but allows you to still have your high beam lights on. This is probably also the best angle to see the rated recovery point. So it's got 2 of those at the front and 2 at the rear. A rated recovery point is important because if you do need to recover the vehicle and you attach a snatch strap to this, if it's not a rated recovery point, there's every chance it will rip off and go flying over your shoulder and into someone's head. So rated recovery points are very important. What Ford's also done is increase the amount of protection for the underbody. So that sort of grey section down the bottom there is a new steel underbody. So 2.3 millimetres thick. It's thicker than the old vehicle. It now covers that front area of the engine. It also covers the transfer case and also items further down the car. So they are really looking at this as a hardcore off-roader and making sure that if you do ding the front end there, in terms of the underbody, you're not going to damage any of the engine components. Of course, just like the current Ranger Raptor, there's a steel bumper there that's separate to the body, so both of those items can flex independent of each other. It's all been built for high-speed off-roading, and the advantage of that separation means that you can have the flexibility of driving faster without doing any real damage to those fixed components on the car. So one of the cool things you'll notice on the side are the wheels. So 17-inch alloy wheel. It's a fresh design, but have a look at this. These are bead locks. Now, this is an option, and you're not meant to use these on the road, but our understanding is these will come as an option on Ranger Raptor, and they allow you to basically detach this front plate and then bead lock the rim to the tyre. So you can really just let the air out of the tyres down to something like 10 psi, and you won't run the risk of them coming off the rim, which is what can often happen if you're doing off-road driving where you have the tyre sort of bending over the rim. It can sometimes pop out. So this bead lock setup, it's available on the F-150 Raptor. It's really cool to see that they've now integrated it here. You won't find anything like this on any standard dual cab ute on sale at the moment. So it is really cool to see that Ford has gone to the effort of making sure this is going to be off-road capable. Hidden off to the side there is the cast aluminium side steps. They have that same coating that the current Ranger Raptor does, and they also have perforations in them. So if you're doing sand driving and that kind of thing and you're flicking debris up onto them, they are just going to have that debris fall through, and they are big enough for you to step onto them to then step into the cab. Ford hasn't shared any dimensions in terms of payload or towing capacity or ground clearance, but our understanding is that this will have at least the same ground clearance as the current Raptor, which is in excess of 250 mils. So there is a big old gap between the ground and where you need to get into the car. Oh, one other thing that's worth pointing out as we work our way around to the back of the car, or to the ute, I keep calling it a car, the vents on the bonnet and also the side flares are functional. So in addition to the car being wider because of those side flares, those channels that run just above the wheel arch flares are actually there to help with cooling. So this is an engine that will get pretty hot with the type of driving you're expected to do in this, and that side channel that exhausts is just there where the indicator kind of would be normally, and then on the bonnet there as well you have functional cooling too. So this stuff actually serves a purpose and is legitimately there for a reason. Ford has integrated zone lighting similar to the current or the new version of the Ranger that we've already talked about. And that means that you're able to use the headlights, the puddle lamps, and also the taillights to project out on the road. And then you can configure zone lighting so that if you are setting up a campsite or something like that, you have sufficient lighting around the car and you don't need anything additional to get everything set up. So let's have a look at the rear. I love these tail lights. So Ford was saying that there's like a mid and a high series tail light. This is a full LED tail light, and it also includes a radar or some kind of blind spot monitoring system within the tail light. This is similar to the Ford F-150. So that means that's all integrated within there. You'll notice down the bottom there as well, Ranger lettering that's embossed into the tray, and then Raptor on the top there too. This is also where you're going to find your exhaust system. Now, the exhaust system is cool because it is fully variable. There's 4 exhaust modes, and I'll run through those when we get to the powertrain section, but they are both dual channel exhausts that run all the way through to the engine. The Australian version of the Ranger Raptor doesn't get a gas particulate filter, but the Euro version will. So our car is Euro 5. Europe will get a Euro 6 version of the Ranger Raptor. Same story at the back there with the steel bumper. What they've also done with the tow bar is integrated it a little bit higher. That increases the departure angle at the rear. So it means that you won't have your tow bar hitting on things when you are doing some proper and serious off-road driving. Right, moving on to the interior. Now, the interior of the new Ford Ranger I really like simply because they've gone to a lot of effort to bring this into the current day and age and beyond. And I'm talking about things like that giant vertical 12-inch screen central to the cabin. That features Sync 4, which is Ford's latest version of their infotainment system. Comes with over-the-air updates, and you can update something like 50 modules within the car. Now, that's important because if Ford, for example, gets a better suspension tune, or I don't know, there's some better engine or throttle mapping that they come up with down the track, they're able to send that as an over-the-air update to the vehicle, and it can then improve the vehicle without it needing to go back to the dealer. So that is one of the benefits of over-the-air updates. That's also where you're going to control a lot of the vehicle's off-road settings as well. And I'll talk about those when we go to the drivetrain section, but they've tried to move away from physical switches and buttons and tried to integrate it all within that section. Raptor gets red highlights. So you'll notice they're around the air vents, the red highlights. On the steering wheel, you have your central position for those drifters out there. Raptor emblazoned on the bottom of the steering wheel, some red stitching in the wheel and also on the seats. Previous gen of Ranger Raptor had Recaro seats from memory, but this doesn't appear to be branded Recaro. So I don't know if they've moved away from Recaro or if it just doesn't have branding. Maybe they had a branding deal or something like that expired. But I think the interior looks pretty cool. There is a lot that's going on here. Those magnesium paddle shifters carry over from previous generation of Ranger Raptor, and you can see here some of the design people looking at those red stitched elements. I think they were inspired by the F-22 Raptor, the plane that flies around and makes lots of noise. Now, engine, this is the bit that has me most excited. I genuinely thought Ford was just going to stick a V6 diesel in this because, you know, it's Ford, and I mean that in the nicest possible way, but this time around they have pleasantly surprised me because this is the same powertrain they use in the new Bronco Raptor. So the fact that we're getting an engine from a vehicle that is pretty big inside our Ranger, I think is pretty awesome. So it's a 3-litre twin-turbocharged V6. We did speculate that this would get the 2.7, but they have bumped this up a notch. Just an interesting side note, the entire Ranger range will actually get a twin battery setup ability under the bonnet. So depending on which Ranger variant you go for, you'll be able to run with 2 batteries, including the Raptor. So that is good news for people who do like adventuring and need that extra bit of power. You can then configure them to run with your auxiliary switches too, which is great. Now, power and torque. So 3-litre twin-turbocharged V6. 10-speed automatic is the only transmission you can get. Power output, just under 300 kilowatts of power. Torque, little under 600 newton meters of torque. Now, I've been told that if the current Ranger Raptor does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in a little over 10 seconds, I've been told that the new one should be around half that. So that's exciting because that is some serious pace. Now, in terms of the way it sends torque to the ground, this is a permanent four-wheel drive. So it's not like the current diesel Raptor that sends it to the rear wheels. This is permanent four-wheel drive, but you can choose between four-wheel drive low range, four-wheel drive high range, four-wheel drive automatic, where it selects which mode it needs to be in, and also 2 high. So you can actually do some fun drifty things in this should you so desire. The other awesome technology they've integrated into here is bred from Rally, and they have used this previously in the Ford Focus RS, but it's called anti-lag. And the way that it works is for 3 seconds when you lift off the throttle, they're able to feed the turbochargers with air to keep them spooling. It means that if you go back onto the throttle, there is virtually no lag. It's already a spooled turbocharger. In vehicles without this technology, the second you go off the throttle, they stop spooling until you then input throttle again. So that technology in Baja mode, which is the most extreme of its drive modes, means that this should really perk this up when it comes to faster off-road driving and even faster track driving should you desire. You'll always have torque available to you. Now, I mentioned the exhaust earlier, so you have 4 modes to choose from, all the way from normal to Baja, Baja being the loudest. It's a fully active exhaust system, so it will vary the noise as you progress through throttle inputs, and also it will link that to the drive modes that you have available. 7 drive modes to choose from, everything again from normal all the way through to Baja mode. And in addition to that, they also plumb a little bit of noise into the cabin, but they've gone out of their way to explain how this works, because with cars like this, if it was like a sedan or a four-wheel drive of some description, you would get noise from the exhaust that comes back into the cabin. But because it's a ute and there is a tray, there's no opportunity for that noise to come back into the cabin. So what they've done is they have an exact replica of the exhaust note at every single interval and stage of RPM in every gear that then gets plumbed in through the speakers. So as you accelerate, you're getting noise from the exhaust on the outside and also noise from the speakers that mimics the exact noise that you're hearing outside. So it is kind of genuine. It's not the fake noise that they make up in some cars like EVs to make it sound like it's going faster than it actually is. Now, in terms of the sound, it sounds awesome. I've actually heard this. This is the clip of the new Ranger Raptor accelerating. How good does that sound? So like I said, sounds much better in person, but yeah, this sounds way better than the current diesel Ranger Raptor. Now, the way Ford integrates that powertrain with the actual vehicle is through the suspension and also the chassis. So according to Ford, this is a unique chassis compared to the normal version of the Ranger. And also according to Ford, it uses unique mounts and reinforcements for things like the C-pillar, load box and spare wheel. And you can see these items here. This is a car that's going to be doing a whole lot of faster off-road driving, and these elements are there to ensure that nothing comes flying off the car as you're powering along. The suspension is linked with these upper and lower aluminium control arms, so it's a lighter weight unit and also stronger for the type of inputs that it's going to be constantly getting. And it's all sent through a Fox 2.5-inch live valve suspension system. Now, that live valve suspension system may sound familiar, and that's because they use the same setup in the F-150 Raptor in the States. The difference being the F-150 Raptor uses a 3-inch damper, whereas this is a 2.5-inch. And the reason for that is the F-150 is significantly heavier than the Ranger Raptor, so they've gone with a smaller setup here for Ranger. The cool thing with this suspension is that it's not just a basic adaptive damper. So it has an internal bypass, and depending on which drive mode you're in, it's electronically linked. You can see that little electronic component there. It's able to tell the suspension to use different versions of that bypass and to change the way that it reacts to bumps and also jounce. So it means that the suspension is able to know exactly what the driver wants to do and then react accordingly. So it prepares the body for that shock of maximum extension, and then also prepares the body for that maximum jounce, where they actually have a damper attached to the body that prevents it from impacting too hard into the cabin. So they really have thought about everything with this suspension setup to make sure that it is comfortable and also capable of effectively dune racing in just its standard suspension setup. And another cool thing is they've actually filled this damper with a Teflon infused oil. So it means that it has 50% less friction than the previous generation Ranger Raptor. So there you go, fun fact. At the back of the car, you still have a Watts linkage with a coil spring. There's also 4-wheel disc brakes, again, like the new Ranger and also like the previous generation Ranger Raptor. The brakes are the same, but Ford has gone to a lot of effort to adjust the calibration of the braking system to ensure that it performs better off-road. And look, I think that it always did actually perform pretty well off-road. They've just gone to that little bit of extra effort. In terms of your off-road equipment, I mentioned earlier that you have the low range and high range in that 2-speed transfer case. Ford has now also added a front differential lock. So this has a front diff lock and a rear diff lock. They're both electronically controlled. It's not like an air locker setup or anything like that. So this is really quite a powerhouse in terms of all the equipment they've added to it. And it is absolutely unmatched in this segment. Like, there is nothing that comes even close to this. So I'm genuinely excited to drive this. I cannot wait to get behind the wheel. Now, what do I think about all this? Look, I reckon Ford has put their balls on the line. Ford performance appears to actually mean something. If you look at TRD, for example, I mean, they make sticker packs. Same with Rally Art with Mitsubishi. We really haven't seen anything interesting coming out of those brands in terms of those racing divisions. Yes, we have seen some cool GR stuff coming through, but if you have a look at stuff like the 300 Series Land Cruiser, the GR Sport is probably the worst of the range to pick when it comes to handling. Ford, on the other hand, with the Ford Performance, really has gone to town fitting an exceptional engine to this vehicle, state-of-the-art suspension, and they've tuned it for proper fast driving. I don't think they shy away from the fact that you could literally enter this into something like the Finke Desert Race and it would just go absolutely bananas. According to Ford, they have a 10-kilometre test circuit in South Australia. It's like an off-road test circuit. This, compared to the previous generation of the Ranger, is a minute quicker around that 10-kilometre lap, which is just unheard of when it comes to a next generation of a car. So that's really cool stuff. Look, it's going to be expensive, I'm not going to lie. I think that this is probably going to be pushing $100,000 or even over $100,000 with on-road costs. And that's probably going to mean that it has a limited appeal in terms of who's buying it. But ultimately, I think it is worth that kind of money when you look at what they've added to it. And it also shows you that the technology that they developed for this will eventually filter down into other Ranger models. We'll probably see special editions and the kind of thing that we have seen in the current gen Ranger. I'm also excited for what this means for the States. I have a feeling this is going to come to the States now and join the Bronco Raptor. Makes perfect sense to me. They've finally put a petrol engine in it, and it means that it will perfectly suit the American market. So if you are in the States, you are going to have a lot of fun with this. You probably already have a lot of fun with the F-150 Raptor, but this is really just going to add to it. Now, I know what you're wondering. What is Paul wearing? It says Ford on it. This means I have actually seen the Ford Ranger Raptor this morning. We're still waiting for the footage to come through, but by the time this goes live, that walk-around video of me with the actual car will be live, and you can click up here to watch that. So let me know your thoughts about the all-new Ford Ranger Raptor. Are you as impressed as I am with this? Do you like the design? Do you think they've done enough with it? Would you prefer to see a different engine, maybe a supercharged V8 or something like that? Let me know in the comments section below. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. But until next time, take it easy.